Training Think Tank is coming to Costa Rica from December 2nd to December 4th. I'm bringing Noah Olson, Travis Mayer, Alexis Raptis, Julian Cerna, and some of the other Training Think Tank coaches. Head over to trainingthinktank.com/camps to learn more. Should we start a timer?
Quick hitter episode.
Pew, pew, pew. What's this button?
Hey, is that the fairy button? Was it like?
I tried to hit it.
Oh, I don't have the volume turned up.
You didn't hear that?
Oh, I don't have headphones on.
Oh, yeah. I heard it.
What did it do?
Crickets.
Crickets.
Yeah.
All right, that's a wrap on this one.
And we're done.
So I texted Mia last night and I said, hey, you want a podcast? She was like, heck yeah, brother. I was like, let's do it.
You became Julian.
Julian trying to be white.
Yeah.
His comedic white guy voice.
Yeah, his white impersonation.
Yeah. So today let's talk about skills. People trying to get skills that are hard for them to acquire up to this point. Let's dive in. I'm very excited. And this can be for any skills.
Yeah. Mia, I feel...
No, take it away.
Boy.
I feel like you should kick this off because you have had to work harder to learn skills because me and Chris are both extremely talented athletes.
I am.
Kicking off by kicking me down, but okay. So I think the first one, I guess, isn't really something that you're doing wrong, but just a general attitude is expecting to have them in a certain amount of time. I don't think that there's a timeline that is applicable for everyone. I mean, you just hit on that. You could do a muscle up your first day. It took me years. But I think people get into that mindset of like, oh, I should be doing it by now, or this person got it faster than me, and just kind of comparing in that sense versus focusing on why you don't have it yet and what the actual issues are. It's more of like just kind of like doubting yourself or getting down on yourself because you don't have it based on this timeline that you created in your head that's based off of nothing.
Yeah, I'll kind of jump onto that point is I think the binary thought of it either being I have the skill as a 0 or I have got the skill as a 1 is part of the problem in general with athletic development. If you look at any high-level athlete, high-level performer in anything, it's really a process of going from wherever they were, and let's say it's 0 for most people when they start training, and they're constantly refining. So even when an elite athlete, like it took you years to get your muscle up, but the second you got a muscle up, it turned into, okay, well now I need to get multiple muscle ups, and now I need my muscle ups to be refined under fatigue, and now when I get to failure, I want to rest less with muscle ups. So it's really about a process of developing a high level of ability, knowing that the developmental process, if you're thinking in 0s and 1s, is you're really going from like 0 to 0.1 to 0.2 to 0.3 as you're developing, let's say, muscle up, core control, some upper body pulling strength, some confidence on the rings, an understanding of shaping yourself. And all of that progress, if you're just thinking like, well, I still don't have it yet, is almost unseen to you. So it creates a very demoralized and fixed way of looking at training. So I think I disagree with you there that the mindset of approaching a skill and realizing that if I don't have it, I do need to get it. But more important is I need to understand what do I need to do to get it, and how do I measure progress along the way to make sure that I feel confident that I am getting better, so that it's a constantly exciting process to keep working on it instead of, I know it can be very demoralizing to watch somebody really good at something and be like, oh, this is impossible for me. I'm never going to get it. I still don't have it. I've been working for months on it. But getting out of that headspace.
Thought those exact same things so many times. Yeah, something I talk about with my athletes a lot is looking for, I call them aha moments, which doesn't necessarily mean, aha, I got my muscle up. It's, hey, we're working on hitting this position in your swing, and we've worked on it for so long, and on this day you feel something a little different than you felt before, or you're noticing something, or you create more control, or you're getting closer to that position. That's a win. That's a piece of progress. That's an aha moment. And also recognizing and being proud of those, as opposed to just looking at it as like another day that you didn't do a muscle up. Like that can just be so draining and it just working against you because you're not focusing on anything that's going to make you better. You're just focusing on what you don't have. So
I like that idea of, I call them epiphanies, where you're like, oh, epiphany. Right? Epiphany? Somebody is...
Little jokes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
you like somebody can show you like, okay, here's you doing a snatch and here's where your bar path is. Here's where we wanted to get it to go. And if you're learning from an expert who can show you what looks effortless to get into those positions, it can be really frustrating that you go to do that same thing and you just can't mimic it. Nothing you do is going to put your body in that position on day one. You have to work on the timing, work on the mobility, work on all the little subcomponent parts of the puzzle for you to actually be like, okay, now I can get into that position. And I feel like, for me personally, the progress curve feels like it goes flat. And then all of a sudden there's these little jumps where you're like, oh, I figured out how to get the bar where I wanted to get overhead. Or, oh, like something just unlocked in my ankle that allowed me to get a little deeper in my squat. Those moments can take like one session for an elite athlete. We've actually done one-on-one training with semifinal level athletes where you're like, wow, how did you just make a change that quick? But for somebody who's maybe less trained or less talented, it could be like weeks of doing the same thing over and over to like, okay, I got that one little piece of the puzzle, and then you kind of work on it. So I think it's good to figure out how to chunk the skills into like these little manageable parts that you're working on and think of them as you're searching on trying to figure out how to have that aha moment in just that one little thing.
Right. And then even with that, when you're doing your sessions, what I like to remind people is every skill session that you put in is a step forward towards what you're trying to achieve. Even if you don't feel like you made significant changes that day, you're still practicing the skill. You're putting in reps, you're putting in swing reps, pressing reps, whatever you're working on. And that is going to build into your next epiphany or aha moment or whatever you want to call it. So, but with that comes a level of attention that's needed in your skill work, which I think is a mistake that some athletes make as well, where they kind of just like go through the motions of what's programmed and don't do a lot of self-reflection. Obviously lean on your coach and ask for feedback, but you can make a lot of changes within a session if you're just paying attention. I think video review is huge for that, self-video review. Like when I'm doing handstand drills, I do a drill, film, sit down, look at it. What do I look like versus what do I think I look like, and what can I change on my next rep, or at least try to change or focus on? And that allows you to even if you're not making visible changes, you're starting to think about what you're doing and understand positions a little bit more. So like challenge yourself to be more mindful in your skill training, not just looking at what's written on paper and just going through it and then being frustrated that that nothing has changed.
You're the master at that. I feel like you're always filming everything you do.
Yeah. That's what happens when you learn stuff slow.
Yeah, I actually was going to move to point number 2 because that triggered my thought process. That there's a lot of research about the acquisition of skills and watching video while you're trying to do skills, and using your own video to self-correct or self-correct with a coach can speed the learning process up exponentially. And that in the CrossFit space, one of the reasons that I think personally that people struggle to learn skills, and people,
because we don't have mirrors. Bring the mirrors in.
No, I would hate that.
No, I was thinking more that the focus on high intensity is one of the major issues, because you don't have that time to just say, hey, we're going to spend a whole hour of the day today working on your ability to get into better positions, do a rep, go and film it, do a rep. Because if somebody goes through an hour of that, they're like, oh, well, I'm bored. I didn't sweat. I didn't do anything super hard, because a lot of that learning is motor learning. It's happening inside the brain. It's not as exciting. You don't get the adrenaline and all the cool, fun stuff that comes out from pushing yourself in workouts. So I think understanding that there is a training intention that needs to match what your training outcomes are. And if your outcomes are to get a hard workout or, push your body composition, then maybe going harder and moving more weights and, getting some camaraderie and racing against a clock is good. But if you actually want to refine your skill set, exercising, right? But if you're trying to refine your skills so that way next time you do that snatch or next time you do that muscle ups, it's more polished and it looks better, you need to have training that has the intention of actually getting that skill better, as opposed to training that has the intention of getting the best score or pushing yourself. So some of it, I think, is a cultural mindset that just doesn't allow people to put the work in that's required to be good at things. The elite athletes do it, and then they say, oh, we just do CrossFit. But I'm like, yeah, well, I watched you warm up for 30 minutes on your air squat, refining it.
Bitch.
So like, yeah. So you are doing skill work, and you're not just doing 1 hour of hard work. You're doing 5 hours of skill work and 3 hours of hard CrossFit. So when that gets reduced down into a 1 hour session, I think people need to just put more time into the cultivation of the basics for themselves and reviewing them and knowing, okay, it doesn't always need to mess me up for it to be productive training.
Yeah. And I think also just asking yourself, like, if you have this goal and you are limited in training, so you're not a full-time athlete, so you have 90 minutes a day, and it's really important for you to get a muscle up, is it really important for you? And if it is, you're probably going to have to dedicate half of that time twice a week to just skill work versus, and you're going to have to give up 2 of your fun Metcons per week, which is in the scheme of like general fitness, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just the, like you said, the CrossFit mentality. And then also if you are an intermediate level athlete or even an RX level athlete that's missing some skills and your goal is to place higher in the open or quarterfinals, 1 muscle up is way more beneficial than 1 minute faster on a Metcon. So you just have to do it. Like you just have to kind of bite the bullet and do it.
I think it's also a false belief that people need 5 hard Metcons a week or 6 hard Metcons a week. I think you can do CrossFit in its more typical understanding of it in the public market by just doing like, hey, I'm going to crush 2 hard Metcons a week. I'm going to do 2 days of strength work, and I'm going to do 2 days that are just dedicated to skills. And I think you can do a model like that, improve your muscle mass, improve your strength, improve your engine for the very metabolic workouts, and then also develop your skills. So I think both of these first 2 points were very mentality oriented. It's not really about the technicality of learning the skill. It's about putting yourself in the right headspace to make sure that all the work that you're doing leads you to cultivate a better skill.
Before we go to point 3, which, do you have point 3?
Probably. Okay. I can make one up.
All right. Well, I want to say some more on this. There's the video review side of it, which leads into the mindfulness that we talked about. And I think that extends outside of just being in the gym as well. I know that for me personally, I'm not built like a normal CrossFitter. So there's been a lot of things that I've had to just like do my own research on and like look at people who are built similar to me and how they have success in some movements and find videos of them and watch them do it. And these videos aren't always going to be like 3 steps to your muscle ups. You're going to have to do a little bit of like reflection on it. Watch videos, watch them in slow motion. Try to find, if you're stuck, try to do some research and find something that you can take into your next session to help. Obviously, if you have a coach, you can lean on them for that. But I mean, I've always had a coach, and I still did a lot on my own because I think there's something to that, like taking it into your own hands. And if you're not sure, bring that idea to your coach and say, hey, what do you think about this? Do you think this would be a good thing for us to try? And that I think that just like levels you up a little bit when it comes to understanding the skill that you're trying to learn.
Yeah. And Mia's example, when she says she's not built like a normal CrossFitter, she's 5'10". You're 5'10"? Mm-hmm. Yeah. With really long. So can you put that in slow motion?
we can paint her green and put her in front of the building. Wavy, wacky, fire.
My legs are even longer, but they're under the table.
But so one of the practical things she does is she doesn't watch muscle up videos of the 5'3", 130-pound girls that have 10 years of gymnastics experience. She says, okay, well, who are the athletes that are over 150 pounds that are taller than 5'8", and what are they doing technically in the way that they move? And if you get, for example, you see somebody with stubby legs and a really long torso that's a great squatter that's teaching all of this Olympic lifting, and then you come in and you have legs up to your hips or legs up to your sternum.
Legs up to your hips.
Can that be a shirt?
I have legs up to my hips.
That girl has legs up to her hips.
Legs up to their neck. Then those technical skills don't work, or those progressions don't work. And I think it's very hard because we think that the best in the world at doing something are then the best in the world at teaching us how to do the thing. But oftentimes you have to not listen to the best in the world because you don't have all of the same anthropometrics, you don't have the same psychology, you don't have the same 10 years of training background that they have. So taking that kind of approach where you're taking it into your own hands and trying to figure out how it works for you. And in our movement course, I call that self-mastery, where you're just trying to figure out, how do you do that skill? Not how does other people tell you to do it, but how do you actually think about that skill when you're about to do it? And
do you understand why you're not able to do the skill? Like, what is your problem? I mean, that's just like problem solving 101, I guess, but what is the actual issue that you have in completing that skill? And that seems so basic, but that's actually a hard question to answer. You know, I see a lot of people who will send in videos of ring muscle ups where they can get their shoulders higher,
way over the bar,
closer to the rings, but they can't turn over. And they don't know why. And that's something that, like, you know, obviously ask a coach if you have one, but doing that kind of review, take your video, take another video, watch them both in slow motion and see what the differences are. You can do that. Like, everyone out there can do that. You don't have to be a super accomplished coach to do that. You just have to pay a little bit of attention. Yeah,
and be determined to make the changes. Because that's another aspect of this, is that if you've done something, say you've tried muscle ups 100 times and you don't have the skill yet, everything you're doing probably at that point is wrong. You don't realize it, but what feels comfortable for you and what feels natural to you, if you're not able to attain the skill and it's not efficient, your feeling is something that you can't trust. So you have to almost feel awkward and do things that make your body like, ooh, this isn't right, or this makes me uncomfortable. And once you start doing that and getting yourself out of your comfort zone, that's when you can actually start to create the shapes that you need to create, because your body's not really naturally like, I don't think if you just like took a human from back in the day and said, hey, climb above this tree branch or something, that somebody would jump up and pike and swing over. It's going to look different, and we're going to probably climb it like a climber would. So these are very unnatural, they're called functional movements, but they're really very unnatural linear movements that you have to figure out how to optimize to do right.
Real quick on that topic, you mentioned motor learning. Have you heard the science and stuff about sleeping with motor learning? How, like, if you learn a skill and you practice, you know, you put in some time, you're doing it, you suck, you go to sleep, you wake up and it's a little bit better. You've read that?
Yeah, no, it's for sure. It's a real thing. I think that's why they talk about sleep being one of the most important variables for athletes, because your brain can't, it's almost like all the experience you have gets processed at the end of the night when you're sleeping, when you go into a different brainwave state. I don't know all the science. It's probably going to be a neuroscientist like, Max is an idiot. That's not how it works.
I play guitar and I know that I've seen it firsthand with that. Like, I'll be one day just trying to play something crazy hard, and then, you know, you just hammer it out, you know, for an hour or two, and you never really quite get there, and then you wake up, you pick it up, and it's just like you're freaking Jimi Hendrix all of a sudden. You're like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Yeah, it just really comes down to patience, doing it over, doing it multiple days in a row, doing it multiple weeks in a row, and really being disciplined in the process.
Patience and attention.
Yeah.
And not just going through the motions.
So I want to move, those were two very like cerebral things. The training one that I want to bring out, the third, I'd say, would be that you need to figure out with super complicated skills. So if somebody's just learning like to write with their left hand, there's not really that many moving parts in the whole body. It might still be hard to do.
That's something you've done, right?
I have. It's really challenging.
You're right-handed. You spent a long time
learning how to swing a golf club left-handed, right left-handed. But those skills, like it's really all just dexterity. It's fine motor control of just this one hand and getting comfortable with the placement of your arm. But when you're talking about a high-level skill like a muscle up or a snatch or walking on your hands, you're talking about full body integration, strength, safety, and control. Like, your body is designed not to let you kill yourself. So if you don't have the strength to kick up onto your hands and you're just going to face plant and break your neck, it's going to create a tremendous fear response until you develop all of those skills. So one of the things that I think people need to do in these big skills is learn how to chunk them down into their subcomponent parts. So you want to get good at muscle ups. Well, what things go into there? There's like the body shaping. So learning hollows and arches. There's grip strength. So it's learning how to just hold a false grip or hold on really tight with the bar and do small swings and medium swings and big swings. There's the press out at the top. There's the coordination of the timing of how you get into the ring so that your swing is set up properly. So when you, like, if you look at one of Mia's skill programs in the intermediate path, you'll see that all of the skills.
TTT Compete, our online training program, brought to you by Training Think Tank.
Thank you, sir. They're actually our sponsor. you'll see that she takes these big skills and she breaks them down into all these little subcomponent parts that are training them, because you almost have to fragment everything to then be able to integrate it into that bigger movement, because you don't really know, unless you have a one-on-one direct coach that's working with you on the skill on the daily, you don't really know which one of those variables is your weakest link in the chain. So you got to kind of train them all and be like, ooh, I'm really bad at this. And if you're really bad at it, keep doing it. Somehow, sometimes the integration gets better. Did you just die?
Hold on, did you hear that call? Well, I turned and pushed all the way over.
I know.
So hold on. This is something I've been meaning to bring up. When you cough on the podcast, you don't really...
Me?
You cough like right next to it. Well, I turned and pushed all...
So I got to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I'm saying if you heard my cough when I got out of the way, think about the poor audience when you cough.
Have you been taking you chop that audio out or like lower my cough volume?
No.
It's too much detail.
People need that.
What kind of a sound engineer are you?
Oh.
Well, basically, back to
sorry.
what you're saying, with the pieces, something that I also like to, I repeat this over and over and over again in our training videos in Compete, which people are probably annoyed at me, but I don't care. I just want them to remember it.
They love you because you help them get their skills better. They're not annoyed.
Okay. If you say so. We'll chunk it out. Chunk it out.
Chunk.
Is that a new thing? We'll chunk it out, but then I
did that in
always...
third grade and never stopped.
Yeah. I think chunking is actually the opposite. Like if you're trying to remember a phone number, chunking would be like putting the area code as 3 numbers together. So it's more like unchunk.
No, but I want the chunks.
Oh, you would?
I'm speaking about chunks.
Oh, like putting them together.
I was talking about like pounding raviolis.
Okay, so I'll explain.
I do that sometimes too.
I'll explain the piece of the drill, the piece of the skill, but I always also explain why and where that fits back into the drill or into the skill, which I think is super important, because there's hundreds and hundreds of of drills that you can do for your skills. And I can imagine being out there surfing the internet, you get overwhelmed. Like you're just, even like if you're getting desperate, you've been trying muscle ups for years and you can't get it, and you're just looking for new skills. But do you understand? Man, I'm messing this up. New drills. But you don't know how that drill goes into the skill. So paying attention to that and trying to find answers to that.
Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway that I would have from what you talked about is really awareness.
The difference between a drill and a skill.
Well, no, it's just self-awareness to like understand, hey, this is what you're trying to do. And this is, these are the steps that you're taking, and these are why you're taking those steps. Like you're very big on the process of really teaching it, like as a step-by-step process, which sometimes at some point when you develop a skill, you almost want them to be more subconscious, right? There's like a learning process where you have all of this like thinking going on, then some of those things become automatic. Then when you ask an expert, well, what do you think when you do this? They're like, I don't think about it. I just do it. And that can be a weird thing to try to learn from experts, but I think you got to kind of go through those pain processes in the beginning of understanding, I have to understand why I'm doing this and what it's going to lead me to do.
Yep.
And there we go, friends.
If I look under the covers here for a fourth one, it seems like, let me ask you, Mia, were you obsessed with trying to fix, when you didn't have the skills, did you become obsessed trying to get them? Like you mentioned you were on the internet looking for all these videos and you're filming yourself every day.
I don't know if obsessed is the right word. I mean, I guess some people might consider it obsessed, but I wanted to be competitive in the sport, and I had such a big gap between my strength numbers and my engine and my gymnastics capacity. And even though it was improving slowly, it was so slow, and I felt like I was never going to bridge that gap. So I just had to like take the step of being like, I have to put almost all of my marbles in this basket.
Yeah. That's a great metaphor.
No, that's good. Yeah. I mean, because before that, I'm assuming you wanted those skills. So what changed? I guess that's it, that you put all the marbles in the basket?
I think I don't know if anything changed. For me, at that point, it was before I moved here. I didn't have anyone telling me how to do it. So I had to go through the process of trying to figure out how to get these skills, because it wasn't happening the way it was happening for other people, where they would just come in and try muscle ups and eventually get it. It just wasn't happening. Handstand walking was the worst. That was like I was like, I'm never going to be able to walk 10 feet. That's just never going to happen for me. And I had to figure out, like, if I want to be a competitive CrossFitter really bad, that I'm obsessed with.
Yeah.
So
maybe that's it.
It's motivation.
Because I feel like there's so many people who say they want, and this goes for anything in life,
Everybody
right?
wants.
Yeah, exactly. But they say they want the skills, but then you press them and they really don't.
Yeah.
What's that difference that you found from the people who get there?
It's self-awareness, I think. I really do. Like, she knew she wanted it, whereas a lot of people will say they want it, but they don't really want to do all the work that's required to get there, or the thing that they want more is community, or is the feeling you get from a hard exercise. Or so being aware of what you actually want, and more importantly, being willing to sacrifice it. Like, hey, you want to be good at a muscle up? Well, what if that means that you have to lose 15 pounds of body fat, and then you can't go out on the weekends to socialize the way that you normally socialize? Like, are you willing to do all of those things?
Muscle ups fucked up my whole life.
Well, and
it wasn't worth it.
I also think it's how persistent you have to be if you're not, quote unquote, talented in that movement, because it's going to, for most people, it's just going to take longer than you want it to take, or that you think it's going to take. For me, it took years and years longer. Still takes years and years longer. And I think for most people, that is the reality. And it's not.
Even if it's
hard.
Even if you are somebody who is talented, or, like, I don't know if necessarily I was talented because I learned a muscle up in one day, because I also had done upper body strength training and wrestling for 12 years before I tried my first muscle up. So it could have been that I put in all the work that led me to have the strength required to be able to do the skill. But what I found over time is that you get up into a certain threshold where it's not good enough anymore. Like, you can't just rely on talent or your past training. You have to refine it. And if you look at the best people that are doing it, then they have already refined it, or by doing enough of reps, they refined out to a very efficient pattern just because they're talented athletes. Mm-hmm. But I think you really do have to have that mindset of refining and polishing all the time, constantly trying to get it better, and constantly being able to make the sacrifices to get it better if it's something that's important to you.
Yeah.
What a sode.
Oh, baby. So
What
this was a 27-minute and
Banger.
11, 12, 13, 14 second
15
I just realized
podcast.
what you meant by sewed.
sode. Yeah.
episode.
Yeah.
Oh, Mia, don't tell
I
them
was
how
like,
dumb
what
you
did, I
are.
was like, what did he sew?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, what that means is get your skills. If you don't have them, Mia can coach you in them in the intermediate path.
You darn tootin'.